Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today I'm going to be running through the magical mystery TBR that could be in the month of October. So, in order to celebrate reaching 1,000 subscribers, I decided to do an experiment, which is to let my subscribers pick my TBR. So, my original plan was that for the entirety of the month of October, every single thing that my subscribers picked, I would read. And then I was like, I have 1,000 subscribers. I might get more than the 4 or 5 books that I can read in October. So I had this idea, right? Which was basically copy Matt's fantasy book reviews, put all the books on a randomizing magic wheel, and then just spin the wheel. And then I realised I'm not going to finish the Self-Pub September TBR in September because it's the 24th as I write this for the next 3 minutes, and then it'll be midnight, and then it'll be the 25th. It's the 24th, and I have 3 books to read. So I am finishing one, I'm almost halfway through Return to Edan. I really want to read Dirge for Cassius because I have said to the author that I was going to try it out. And obviously I owe you guys a Wheel of Time book. So, and also I have a novella, New York Minute by Stephen Arion, that I will read before the end of the month. So that is literally the next thing I'm going to pick up. But I was like, well, I can't get all of those done. So I had this idea, which was basically when I'm ready to start, when I finish the September TBR, which could be halfway through October, whatever, then I will start a 30 days. So it will be everything that I read in the next 30 days will be picked by subscribers. That also kind of gives me a little bit of leeway to get my Wheel of Time books in before the challenge begins. So I might just read the next 2 Wheel of Times, which like basically back to back, because that would mean that I could stay on time for the Wheel of Time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm still going to do the Magical Mystery Wheel, but I'm basically just going to start the timer when I'm ready to go. And what I thought might be fun is to build the Magical Mystery TBR live. So do a live stream where I'll spin the wheel and I'll chat to subscribers. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing the live stuff that I've done in the past. So I think it could be a good time. But what I thought I'd do today is run through all the books that have been submitted and give you my thoughts on them. So if I've heard of them before, if I've already planned on reading them, if there are some books that have been submitted that I have already read, and then also I'm going to go through the ones that I've kind of not heard of before and read out the back of the book blurbs and just kind of see how I feel about them, and maybe we'll pick a few favourites from the wheel that we're going to cross our fingers that we get. So first off, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, which is that about 70 people have nominated The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. So I have a copy here. I was actually gifted this by a subscriber. They gifted me the entire First Law trilogy, of which I'm extremely grateful. So Sean, thanks very much for sending these over. And it's a lovely edition as well because the cover's like matte and embossed with this lovely gold. You kind of can't see it. Oh, in fact, this is the edition that I had that is damaged. So this is not the one that Sean sent. This is the one that I'm getting rid of. This is the damaged edition that I bought for super cheap off Amazon Marketplace. So this is one that I've been looking forward to for a long time. So I originally bought this on Kindle like the year it came out. The whole trilogy wasn't even finished yet at that point, wasn't all out. And I have owned it. I bought it 2007 this came out, so yeah, like not long after finishing university. One of the first Kindle books that I bought was The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. And I read the first chapter and was like, wow, this is really good. But I wasn't a big reader and I never really picked it back up. 2007 probably was too early for me to have bought it straight away. Probably not long after I read Game of Thrones, which would have been like 2010. So maybe the whole first trilogy was out, but people were comparing it to Game of Thrones, and I was like, oh, I want to read this. So it was one of the first Kindle books I ever bought. And it'd be nice to pay off on that purchase, 15 years later. I don't think I need to read the blurb for this one, and honestly, I'm basically completely blind on what First Law is, what it's about. So I kind of want to keep it that way. Most of these other books I'll go in and read the blurb, but I would say most of the people watching this have probably read First Law or are aware of it, that it's kind of like a grim, dark fantasy series that is very, very beloved and has a lot of interesting characters. To be fair to the First Law, I'm interested in reading it, but the sequel series actually sounds way more up my alley, because as you guys know, the sequel series for Mistborn is one of my favourite series, so I'm thinking maybe the sequel series for First Law will be something similar, because it's kind of like moving on historically in the same way that Mistborn Era 2 is. So this was nominated by Laura from Hardy's Books and Stephen. Thank you, Stephen. And let's keep moving. Adam and Laura again under a different email. I know it's you, Laura, you can't hide from me. So lots of people nominated that one. Well, at least two people nominated that one, but one person nominated it multiple times. Moving on to, again, books that I have physical copies for. So Stephen also, as well as nominating First Law, nominated Red Rising. And as you guys know, I've read the original Red Rising trilogy. This is my next book, Iron Gold. I would like some sci-fi stuff to come up in the nominated list. I think there's only like 2 sci-fi books here. Yeah, 3, 4. There's very few sci-fi books in this list. So would love to read this one. This Red Rising series I enjoyed in a I can read these quickly and they're kind of fun kind of way. However, what I would like to see is the kind of evolution for Pierce Brown from writing the kind of YA adjacent first person POV Red Rising trilogy into this sequel series, which is multi-POV third person. So really looking forward to reading this one. I do want to see what the hype about is with the sequel trilogy. I've heard this is the worst one in the entire series, and I thought Morningstar was kind of middling. So it probably would have been an upgrade from that if I had read it closer to the time and been able to connect the dots on those, but I didn't do that. So looking forward to reading it. Next up after this, the other book that I have a physical copy for that was nominated was Realm of the Elderlings, and the next book I have to read in Realm of the Elderlings is Mad Ship. This also is weirdly damaged in a similar way. I don't know why that is. Both of these came from Amazon, and both of them I had in like multi-book packs and didn't realise until I opened the multi-book pack after I was not able to return it anymore. So I'm stuck with a slightly damaged copy of Mad Ship. However, I probably want to replace these editions with like matching editions down the line if I really love Realm of the Elderlings, so I'm not that bothered. This is for me to bash up and read anyway. So an interesting part about Mad Ship is that I have actually started reading this and I've read the entire first part. So I think I took the bookmark out because I was like, I know I won't remember this, so there's no point. But I finished the whole first part and got to the first interlude and then was like, this is a good stopping point. I have read 4 Robin Hobb books in a row and I feel like I need a little bit of a break from the kind of story that Robin Hobb likes to tell, despite thinking that Ship of Magic is the best book that she's written that I have read. Really looking forward to getting back to Robin Hobb. My original plan for Robin Hobb was to read The Realm of the Elderlings after I had read Malazan. And Malazan is coming after Wheel of Time as my monthly book series. I think that it's good to have a series that you work on month by month, and I do think that I I'm going to go straight into Malazan after reading Wheel of Time. So Realm of the Elderlings could be a good threequel for that. If it comes to that, I may end up rereading the first 4 books anyway, but for this particular TBR challenge month, I will only be reading Magic, which is the first book that I have not finished by Robin Hobb in the Realm of the Elderlings. This was nominated by a lot of people. This was nominated by Sam Jane. This was nominated by, because there's a lot of Sam's nominated, which is why I've given a surname. Nominated by Sam Jane. This was nominated by Mare 3 times. And actually, that's it. So we actually got quite a lot of different nominations, which I'm really excited about. Final book that I own a physical copy for, and this is one that I've been wanting to read for ages anyway, so thank you, Charlie, for nominating it. It is Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Bjornman. Christopher Bjornman is like... he's been described a lot as the author's author, that he writes books that authors love to read. And this Broken Binding edition is absolutely stunning. I really love it. I love the expanded artwork on the cover and how it goes onto the side. I like it's also signed, which is cool. And I just kind of like everything about these editions, to be honest. The paper is lovely. There's even a yellow ribbon, and you guys know I love a ribbon. Really excited to read this one. It's going back on the shelf to preserve its lovely design. Charlie pitched me this book in the comment and just said, read whichever one you want to read first, but I think publication order is the best, and that's how I always read. I always read in publication order. So Black Tongue Thief is going to be my that is probably, if I look at this whole list, that is very high. That could be my number 1 on this TBR, possible TBR. But there's a lot of books here that I haven't heard of, so let's keep going. Right, we're on to the digital now, or we're on to the books that I don't have physical copies for. So first up, we have also submitted by Charlie. We have X Heroes by Peter Clines, and let me just read you this blurb. The first in a spectacularly genre-mashing adventure series that pits a small group of courageous, flawed, terrified superheroes against hordes of the undead. Stealth, Gorgon, Regenerator, Cerberus, Zap, the mighty dragon. They were heroes, using their superhuman abilities to make Los Angeles a better place. Then the plague of living death spread around the globe. Now, a year later, the heroes struggle to overcome their differences and recover from their own scars as they protect the thousands of survivors huddled in their film studio turned fortress, The Mount. But the hungry ex-humans are not the only threat the survivors face. Across the city, another group has grown and gained power. As you guys know, I love superhero stuff. I have had this on my TBR, honestly, for forever. And Charlie has been very, very patient after recommending it to me, and when I said I would definitely read it, so I'd like to get to that one. Again, that Charlie has really nailed my reading taste on the head there, and that's very high on my list. Next up, The Dance of Shadows by Rod Payne, which was nominated by Ross of Hardy's Books. Let me read you guys the blurb on this one. I know literally nothing about this one, so looking forward to finding out something. Rumi and his family are Odu, stricken with poverty and disparaged by the other tribes, when ruthless agents of the Palmain, the colonizing nation that dominates the continent of Basmine, threaten to destroy the village market. Rumi takes it upon himself to liberate his family, taking a place in the prestigious Golden Room, where earnings from his music offer a chance of freedom. He shoulders his pride and resentment in a bid to make it to the top. On what should be Rumi's greatest night at the Golden Room, his life is turned upside down. A terrifying individual known as the Priest of Vultures attacks Rumi and his family. Before her death, Rumi's mother, Adunola, solicits the help of a dying god and saves Rumi, setting him on the path to become a warrior with the ability to use their shadow as a weapon. But Rumi's need for vengeance may be more important to him than the future of his people. So that sounds very interesting. I do really like African fantasy and sci-fi stuff, despite having not really read any of it, but I like it conceptually. I like the idea of it, and I would like to read some of it, and this sounds very good, and I know from all my friends who've read this say they love it, so I would like to read it. Also, there is a typo in the second to last sentence on the Goodreads summary, so Wayward Pines, if you do watch this, just letting you know. Next up, we got recommended The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. This is also recommended by Ross, submitted by Ross, I guess. This, however, is not the first book in the series. So the series is called The Culture by Ian M. Banks, and the first book is called Consider Phlebas. And as you guys know, I only read in publication order, so whilst I do appreciate Ross specifically recommending a specific book, and I'm sure the series can be read out of order, I will not be doing that. I will be reading the first book first. Let me tell you guys, and I apologise in advance to you, Ross, but you know my damage, you know my problems. So let's read that blurb. The war raged across the galaxy. Billions had died. Billions more were doomed. Moons, planets, the very stars themselves faced destruction. Cold-blooded, brutal, and worse, random. The Idirans fought for their faith, the culture for its moral right to exist. Principles were at stake. There could be no surrender. Within the cosmic conflict, an individual crusade. Deep within a fabled labyrinth on a barren world, a planet of the dead prescribed to mortals lay a fugitive mind. Both the culture and the Idirans sought it. It was the fate of Horza, the Changer, and his motley crew of unpredictable mercenaries, human and machine, actually to find it, and with it, their own destruction. So this is one of the oldest books submitted. Actually, this came out in 1987. A lot of modern stuff was submitted, really. And I was born in 1986, so exciting to see a book that is almost as old as I am. And probably Ian M. Banks did write it before I was born. You never know. Anyway, this sounds very interesting. I have been curious about Ian M. Banks for a long time. I would like to get into more thinky sci-fi, because I often find that thinky fantasy stuff tends to kind of push me away, but thinky sci-fi stuff I can get a bit more into, mostly because you have that kind of known backdrop of our world to help you understand the story through. Even if it's 10,000 years in the future, you can be like, well, these are still people, you know, but that doesn't always map across to a fantasy world. So that also sounds very interesting. Thank you, Ross, for nominating that. Final Ross nomination. Nope, not a final Ross nomination. And in fact, we have lost one of Ross's nominations, which was Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I did not get the link ready for that. So, through the magic of editing, now I will read the blurb for Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
A few moments later.
On the world called Hyperion, beyond the law and the hegemony of man, there waits the creature called the Shrike. There are those who worship it, there are those who fear it, and there are those who have vowed to destroy it. In the valley of the time tombs, where huge brooding structures move backward through time, the Shrike waits for them all. On the eve of Armageddon, with the entire galaxy at war, 7 pilgrims set forth on a final voyage to Hyperion, seeking the answers to the unsolved riddles of their lives. Each carries a desperate hope and a terrible secret, and one may hold the fate of humanity in his hands. So this is an incredibly popular sci-fi book that is like one of the classics of the genre. People love it. I am vaguely interested in this one. I'm not a huge short story collection kind of guy, and this is very much a Canterbury Tales style short story collection. I did enjoy some of this Canterbury Tales stuff when I studied at A-level. However, it probably would have been cooler if it had a robot in it. So looking forward to reading Hyperion if it does come up. That one probably not on the short list because again, short story collections, not hugely my bag. But let's move on. So the next recommendation, Stephen, you recommended Will of the Many. I've read it and reviewed it. You can see the review on the channel from earlier this summer. Charlie, you recommended Piranesi. That was the first ever review I did on the channel, September last year. Don't watch it, it's bad. The next one up, we have my lovely friend Rebecca Nicole, who has the booktube channel Reading with Rebecca Nicole. If you like books, you'll probably like her channel. She's a librarian as well, which is extremely cool. So please check her channel out. I will actually try, everyone who's nominated a book who is a YouTuber, I'll try and put their channels down in the description below. But she nominated The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. DeJelly Clark. I do apologise in advance if I've mispronounced any names here. When I used to work in a call centre years ago, our rule was to make an attempt at the name and then afterwards apologise. And that's what I'm going to do for all of these names that I don't know how to say. So, let's read the blurb. The dead cattail assassins are not cats, nor do they have tails, but they are most assuredly dead. Evine the Eviscerator is skilled, discreet, professional, and here for your most pressing needs in the ancient city of Talabisi. Her guild is strong, her blades are sharp, and her rules are simple. Those sworn to the matron of assassins, resurrected, deadly, wiped of their memories, have only 3 unbreakable vows. First, the contract must be just. That's above Evine's pay grade. Second, even the most powerful assassin may only kill the contracted. Evine's a professional. She's never missed her mark. The third, and once you accept a job, you must carry it out. And if you stray, a final death would be a mercy. When the Festival of the Clockwork King turns the city upside down, Evine's newest mission brings her face to face with a past she isn't supposed to remember and a vow she can't forget. That sounds really interesting. I have heard of this book, but didn't really know anything about it. I kind of assumed from the title and the cover that this wasn't really something for me. It doesn't sound like the kind of books that I would normally read, but that is putting my reading and myself in a box, and I should stop doing that. Hello, I'm in a field, and I'm here to talk to you about Your Paper Quest. Your Paper Quest is a bookish subscription box that is very kindly sponsoring this month of content on the channel. If you subscribe to Your Paper Quest, you will get 2 self-hub indie books selected by the editors over at Your Paper Quest, sent to you every single month. That is roughly 600 pages of fiction. Those books will be usually on a theme, like a genre such as fantasy, sci-fi or horror. And you won't just get those books, you'll also get some bookish bits in the box, and on top of that you'll also get access to the Your Paper Quest book club, where you can talk to other subscribers who are reading the books and ask questions of the authors. The authors will also post a monthly interview, and you can have this monthly, bi-monthly or quarterly in the US or the UK. And if you're interested, you can subscribe using my discount code SAM20, which will get you 20% off of your bookish box, and it'll also help the channel. So happy reading, and thanks for subscribing if you have. Next up, we have what I can imagine is the oldest book submitted, which is Lord Fs Bane by Stephen R. Donaldson. This is the first book in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. This one was submitted by my lovely friend Cams, who has a fantastic and very, very chill, very vibes heavy channel, and if you're interested in books like this one, then definitely check him out. He also loves a lot of like Russian poetry and history books. That's really cool. Let's read the blurb for this one. He called himself Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever because he dared not believe in the strange alternate world in which he suddenly found himself. Yet the land tempted him. He had been sick, now he seemed better than ever before. Through no fault of his own, he had been outcast, unclean, a pariah. Now he was regarded as a reincarnation of the land's greatest hero, Beric Halfhand, armed with the mystic power of white gold. That power alone could protect the lords of the land from the ancient evil of Despiser, Lord Foul. Only Covenant had no idea of how the power could be used. Thus begins one of the most remarkable epic fantasies ever written. Sounds interesting. It's an isekai style fantasy book, sounds like, so it could be a lot of fun. Next up we have Lost Ark Dreaming by Suyi Davies Okunboa. This was also recommended by my good friend Rebecca Nicole, and I'm going to read you guys the blurb. This is a long one, so strap in everyone. Off the coast of West Africa, decades after the dangerous rise of the Atlantic Ocean, the region's survivors live inside 5 partially submerged, kilometres-high towers originally created as a playground for the wealthy. Now the tower's most affluent rule from their lofty perch at the top, while the rest are crammed into the dark, fetid floors below sea level. There are also those who are left for dead in the Atlantic, only to be reawakened by an ancient power, and who seek vengeance on those who offer them up to the waves. 3 lives within the towers are pulled to the fore of this: Yakini, an earnest mid-level rookie analyst; Toyo, an undersea mechanic mourning a tremendous loss; and Ngozi, an egotistical bureaucrat from the highest level of governance. They will need to work together if there's any hope of a future that is worth living for everyone. Rebecca Nicole raved about this one in a review on her channel, so again, genuinely excited to read this one. This, I might put that in the top list. So currently we've got 2 books from Charlie and 1 from Rebecca Nicole in the top list, the ones that I'm most excited to start. Next up we have another book from Rebecca Nicole, which is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is one that I have been recommended multiple times by a lot of friends. I have put it off because I did not enjoy the Monk and Robot book, and in fact DNF'd it extremely early on, like 1 or 2 chapters in, knowing that it was not holding my attention at all. Yeah, Psalm for the Wild Built, that one is. So this one is probably one of the ones that I am least excited about coming up. However, don't let that stop you from reading it, because I do hear it's fantastic. Let me read you the blurb. Rosemary Harper doesn't expect much when she joins the crew of the aging Wayfarer. While the patched-up ship has seen better days, it offers her a bed, a chance to explore the far-off corners of the galaxy, most importantly, some distance from her past. An introspective young woman who learned early to keep to herself, she's never met anyone remotely like the ship's diverse crew, including Sissix, the exotic reptilian pilot, chatty engineers Kizzy and Jenks, who keep the ship running, and Ashby, their noble captain. Life aboard the Wayfarer is chaotic and crazy, exactly what Rosemary wants. It's also about to get extremely dangerous when the crew is offered the job of a lifetime. Tunneling wormholes through space to a distant planet is definitely lucrative and will keep them comfortable for years, but risking her life wasn't part of the plan. In the far reaches of deep space, the tiny Wayfarer crew will confront a host of unexpected mishaps and thrilling adventures that force them to depend on each other. To survive, Rosemary's got to learn how to rely on this assortment of oddballs, an experience that teaches her about love and trust, that having family isn't necessarily the worst thing in the universe. Interestingly, the description and blurb for that book sounded a lot more like something I would be interested in than the way that people have pitched it to me. So looking forward to possibly reading that one a lot more than I originally was. And that's actually also 2 sci-fis submitted by Rebecca, so thank you very much in advance. If any of them get pulled, because there's not that many sci-fi here, so be looking forward to getting some bit of diversity on the genres for that month that I'm reading everything that you guys submit. Next up, we have In the Shadow of the Wolf Queen by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. This one was submitted by my good friend Timothy Burbage, who has an excellent YouTube channel which is criminally undersubscribed. So please, guys, go to the link down below in the description and follow his channel. Let me read you guys the blurb. I've literally never heard of this book, so looking forward to finding out more. In the lakes, the Wolf Queen sharpens her spear. In the mountains, an ancient girl opens her eye. In the forest, an orphan is summoned by the trees. Our story has begun. Isolde has lived her life in the shadow of the Wolf Queen's tyrannical rule, but safe in her forest haven, she has never truly felt its threat. Until one day, when a mysterious earthquake shakes the land and her older sister Hari vanishes in its wake. Accompanied by her loyal Seahawk, Nara, Isolde embarks on a desperate rescue mission, but when she is forced to strike a bargain with the Wolf Queen herself, she soon finds herself embroiled in a quest for magic more powerful and more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. So, lots of pluses on this one. I have not read any middle grade or YA books since starting the channel, unless you count Red Rising, I guess. And the first Sunita book actually feels quite YA to me, but maybe that's just me. Oh, I also read the Skyward books, which are all YA, so I've read 4 YA books and 4 YA novellas, but let's not talk about that. And it's only 246 pages, so thank you, Timothy, for nominating a book which is not 800 pages. Looking at you, everyone else. You know what you've done. Next up, Timothy also recommended The Princess Bride by William Golding. I assume, no, Goldman, not Golding. William Golding is the Lord of the Flies guy. William Goldman is the author of The Princess Bride. I'm not going to read the blurb for this one because I have seen the film and I am kind of curious to go in completely blind and compare it to the film after reading. So thanks again for nominating this one, Timothy. This one is also high on the list. The final book that Tim nominated is called A Hero Born, and it's by Jin Yong, translated by Anna Holmwood. And this one is part of a series that Timothy raved about in... I keep saying Timothy and Tim, so I'm going to say Tim. So Tim raved about this one in a fairly recent video of his that I watched. Do you know what? I can't remember when. He raved about it in a video. He raved about this series, and it sounds really interesting. And it is historical fiction, which I've not read anywhere near enough of, and I'm genuinely looking forward to hopefully having this one drawn. This is probably, if you don't count the books that I already own, this is probably number 1 on the list in terms of my interest. So let me let you know what's going on. China, 1200 AD. The Song Empire has been invaded by its warlike Jurchen neighbours from the north. Half its territory and its historic capital lie in enemy hands. The peasants toil under the burden of the annual tribute demanded by the victors. Meanwhile, on the Mongolian steppe, a disparate nation of great warriors is about to be united by a warlord whose name will endure for eternity, Genghis Khan. Gojing, son of a murdered Song patriot, grew up with Genghis Khan's army. He is humble, loyal, perhaps not altogether wise, and is fated from birth to one day confront an opponent who is the opposite of him in every way. Privileged, cunning, and flawlessly trained in the martial arts. Guided by his faithful Shifus, the 7 heroes of the south, Gojing must return to China, to the Garden of the Drunken Immortals in Jiaxing, to fulfill his destiny. But in a divided land riven by war and betrayal, his courage and his loyalties will be tested at every turn. The way the blurb for that is very exciting. The way that Tim talked about the series is very exciting. I think he said that the final book in the quadrilogy was his favourite book of last year. So yeah, can't get any more high of a recommendation than that. Next up, we have one by Kat, who has a great channel that you should definitely check out. And she recommended The Garden Gnome by Jeff McIntyre. Let me read this bad boy for you. Where did magic go? Our world is defined by science, but history tells us that the world was once a much more magical place. Every culture has tales of when the gods walked among us, when strange magical creatures dwelt in the dark, and when users of magic were respected and feared. We tell ourselves that these stories are myth and superstition, but what if they aren't? What if magic were to return? What does that have to do with a 10-year-old boy and his imaginary friend? Daniel and Sophia Fitzroy are worried that their son Tony is being bullied in his new school and is struggling to cope. Leo Schaefer is reporting on a new and powerful particle accelerator experiment and the protesters who want it stopped. FBI Special Agent Deborah Kasdan is investigating the protests and trying to keep things from escalating. Brian Cook is being inducted into a secret society that knows the truth about magic and will stop at nothing to keep it from returning. They will be drawn together in an extraordinary confrontation that will change the world forever. Now that sounds fun, and I'll tell you why that sounds fun, because that sounds like it might be an urban fantasy. And as you guys know, that's another genre that is not epic fantasy, and so will break up the month, so that would be very exciting. Next up, we have an epic fantasy. So Kat also recommended The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This is one that I've genuinely been excited for and interested in reading, and it won the Goodreads Choice Award and was also a nominee for Best Fantasy and Best Debut Novel in 2020. I will read you now the blurb so that you can see whether you would be interested in reading this yourself. The Emperor's reign has lasted for decades, his mastery of bone shard magic powering the animal-like constructs that maintain law and order. But now his rule is failing, and revolution is sweeping across the Empire's many islands. Lynn is the Emperor's daughter, and spends her days trapped in a palace of locked doors and dark secrets. When her father refuses to recognise her as heir to the throne, she vows to prove her worth by mastering the forbidden art of bone shard magic. Yet such power carries a great cost, and when the revolution reaches the gates of the palace, Lynn must decide how far she is willing to go to claim her birthright and save her people. So this one has stood out to me multiple times in the past. I've been very interested in reading this. I think I already own it on Kindle, though not physically. Although I'm probably reading a lot more on Kindle at the moment anyway because of baby stuff. Really looking forward to reading this one. This one is probably also going to go in the top picks list. I'm not keeping track of this top picks list, so I hope you are. Next up, my good friend Senna recommended The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. He then told me afterwards that maybe I wouldn't like it, but I am really curious to give this one a try. I've been hearing so many good things about this book, and I think that is a real shortcut to making me interested in wanting to read it. I already have the book. I have an ARC which has been lying, unfortunately, unread on my Kindle since I was sent it, but I will get around to it eventually, maybe during this reading experiment. Let me read you guys the blurb. From a debut voice comes a genre-breaking blend of apocalyptic sci-fi and epic fantasy about a scattered group of unlikely heroes travelling across their broken mechanical planet to stave off eternal darkness. A tightly coiled puzzle of a thrill ride, The Failures launches the Wonderlands trilogy. That's an extremely sparse blurb. It's like 3 sentences. However, I'm already intrigued, so do they need a fancy, incredibly long blurb? No. I'm just looking forward to reading this one. So this is again in the top list. Next recommendation also comes from Senna. This is for the first book in the Wayward Pines trilogy, which is called Pines. I actually watched the TV show for Wayward Pines and I really enjoyed it. But like season 1 of it, season 2, they did like a whole thing that I never got on board with and never watched. But I really enjoyed season 1, and I love 2 out of the 3 Blake Crouch books that I've read, so I definitely think I will enjoy this one. Let me read you that blurb. Wayward Pines, Idaho is quintessential small town America, or so it seems. Secret Service agent Ethan Burke arrives in search of 2 missing federal agents, yet soon is facing much more than he bargained for. After a violent accident lands him in the hospital, Ethan comes to with no ID and no cell phone. The medical staff seems friendly enough, but sometimes feels off. As days pass, Ethan's investigation into his colleague's disappearance turns up more questions than answers. Why can't he make contact with his family in the outside world? Why doesn't anyone believe he is who he says he is? What's the purpose of the electrified fences encircling the town? Are they keeping the residents in, or something else out? Each step towards the truth takes Ethan further from the world he knows until he must face a horrifying fact. he may never get out of Wayward Pines alive. Yeah, so I know the twist, if it's the same as the twist in the TV show, because obviously I've watched the TV show, and I thought the twist was quite interesting. And I liked the kind of concept of the town and the mystery and all that sort of stuff. So I'd still like to read the book, and I would like to see where it goes with further storytelling. So obviously it's a trilogy, not just a single season of TV. So yeah, hopeful that one gets pulled. That one sounds like a fun ride. We're on the penultimate submission here. This one also from Senna. This is for Keanu Reeves and China Mieville's Book of Elsewhere. Book of Elsewhere is, I believe, based on the comic Berserker that he wrote, that Keanu Reeves wrote. I'm curious to read this one. I've heard that it's not great, but that could be kind of a fun troll read from Senna. Let me read you guys the blurb. She said we needed a tool, so I asked the gods. There have always been whispers, legends, the warrior who cannot be killed, who's seen 1,000 civilizations rise and fall. He has known many names. Unut, Child of Lightning, Death himself. These days, he's known simply as B, and he wants to be able to die. In the present day, a Black Ops group has promised him they can help him with that, and all he needs to do is help them in return. But when an all-too-mortal soldier comes back to life, the impossible event ultimately points towards a force even more mysterious than B himself, one at least as strong, and one with a plan all its own. In a collaboration that combines Mieville's singular style and creativity with Reeves' haunting and soul-stirring narrative, these two inimitable artists have created something utterly unique, sure to delight existing fans and create a score of new ones. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Keanu Reeves. I think he's fantastic. I think he's really fascinating, and I love a lot of the movies that he's done, and I would be interested in reading this one. Is this a good first China Mieville book? Probably not, but I guess we'll find out. The final book is recommended by my close personal in real life friend Sam Harris. Very cool name, except could be 2 letters longer, ideally. And he has also recommended a book that is nominated for the Booker Prize this year, which is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. I own this already, so would be an easy read. It's also like 200 pages. Let me read you guys the blurb for this one. A slender novel of epic power, Orbital deftly snapshots one day in the lives of 6 men and women hurtling through space, not towards the moon or the vast unknown, but around our planet. Selected for one of the last space station missions of its kind before the program is dismantled, these astronauts and cosmonauts from America, Russia, Italy, Britain and Japan have left their lives behind to travel at a speed of over 17,000 miles an hour as the Earth reels below. We glimpse moments of their earthly lives through brief communications with family, their photos and talismans. We watch them whip up dehydrated meals, float in gravity-free sleep, and exercise in regimented routines to prevent atrophying muscles. We witness them form bonds that will stand between them and utter solitude. Most of all, we are with them as they behold and record the silent blue planet. Their experiences of 16 sunrises and sunsets and the bright blinking constellations of the galaxy are at once breathtakingly awesome and surprisingly intimate. So are the marks of civilization far below, encrusted on the planet on which we live. Profound, contemplative and gorgeous, Orbital is an eloquent meditation on space and a moving elegy to our humanity, environment and planet. So that sounds very good, and like I said, another big bonus is I already own it, so I don't have to pay for it again. I got it on the 99p deal on Kindle recently, so it's also mega short. This was one of the books that was recommended by the manager at Blackwell's in Oxford when Ross and Laura and I went there, and he's a huge SFF nut, and the way he pitched this book was genuinely fantastic, and I already wanted to read it, so thanks Sam for nominating it. If you're into running, my friend Sam is trying to map the whole of the village that he's living in, by running every single street and trail in that village. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, follow him on YouTube. He is putting up shorts pretty regularly and they're fun. that's everything. If you would like to add to this list, this is not a finished definitive list. I'm not going to shut the list down until the like day before I draw all the books out of the hat, or the magical wheel of destiny. So if you would like to submit a book, the link will be down below in the description. Also, if you like this video, please give it a like. You can do that on the way down to the description. You can also leave a comment to tell me about some stuff that you're excited about and which one of these you want me to read, which one's your priority read. And on top of that, if you haven't subscribed, you should, because then you can be truthfully and, you know, really properly taking part in this experiment by being a subscriber. Because if I put the video out and I say I let my subscribers pick my reading for a month, but then like you aren't subscribed, you're turning me into a liar, and like, that's not fair. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.